Hi everyone. Today I want to introduce one of my other portfolios. The portfolio that I'm going to cover is called my Retire portfolio. It is my smallest and most recent portfolio that I've started building because this is money that I plan to not touch until I retire. And when I retire is based on when this portfolio can support that lifestyle. So in this video, I'm going to do a quick overview of what the portfolio is and how I think about it. And then I'll go into each of the different sectors in the portfolio. As always, there will be some jelly at the end, which is something I enjoyed outside of the markets. If you're interested in buying the new Aston Martin DBS Superleggera, go ahead and like and subscribe. This car starts at $305,000. It comes standard with a 5.2 liter V12 that puts out 715 horsepower. This car is truly special because it combines the opulence and luxury of an Aston Martin, but it still has the V12 performance similar to that of a Ferrari. And with that, welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. All right, so this is my retirement growth portfolio. It currently sits at $5,329. That's down from the $5,867 that I put into it. So far, it has earned $59 in dividends, which offsets the $537 worth of market losses. It's still down quite a bit from the highs, and that's because I really haven't been buying in this portfolio on the dips. I've been focused on my higher yield savings account, which I mentioned in my savings plan for maximum growth video. If you're interested in that, I will link it in the description. But let's get to this portfolio. So you can see here, I break it down by sector. I have healthcare, tech. I do include some ETFs just so I have some wider exposure and I'm not picking all individual stocks. Then I have consumer, utilities, industrials, finance, telecom, real estate, and energy. If you notice here, real estate is a pretty small percentage. That's because I have quite a bit of other real estate holdings in other places to include Fundrise as well as my higher yield savings account. If you're interested in real estate and Fundrise, I will link that video in the description. And then energy is my smallest sector. That's because the oil industry has really been struggling for quite a long time. They do have quite a high dividend, which is why I include them at all. But their market growth has been pretty terrible in recent history. Telecom, the only thing that I own in telecom is Verizon and AT&T. I recently did a review of AT&T, which I will link in the description as well. Finance, this mostly consists of big banks. We'll get into that more later. Industrials is things like 3M and Caterpillar and Waste Management. Utilities is like Southern Company or Domain Energy. Consumer, this is things like Walmart, Target, Clorox, things that you buy on a regular basis. Dividend ETFs, we'll get into that a little bit more later. Tech, this is the major players, Google, Facebook, Apple. And then healthcare, that's mainly J&J, AbbVie, United Health, things of that nature. And with that, let's get into these sections. First up is healthcare. You can see here that this section is worth $827. I've put in $836 and received $8.89 in dividends. You can see this section has done pretty well with the cough situation going on. It's only down 50 cents. But if you take a look at the graph here, I have been adding to this position. Here are the holdings. I have Johnson & Johnson, Merck & Company, AbbVie, Pfizer, Imogen, Medtronic, and United Health. Medtronic has really been pulling down the group. They've taken the most hit in terms of reduced medical equipment sales, despite them selling additional ventilators. With the market drop, Merck & Company is down a little bit as well. Everything else in this section is up though, which I guess you would expect with a global sickness going around, that health companies would be doing well. Johnson & Johnson though is the staple of this section. They are a dividend aristocrat. They've paid their dividend for decades, and they continue to increase their dividend. I really see almost no risk with Johnson & Johnson, and I believe that they will be worth more in the future. Merck & Company, AbbVie, and United Health, Pfizer. These other companies, there's more risk. You have to worry about things like patents on drugs and the government regulating health insurance. But for the most part, I feel comfortable with these companies. I'm not going to go too deep on each company, or this video would be an hour long. Moving on to tech, another sector which has done quite well. It's only down 0.11% right now. In terms of holdings, I have Apple, Microsoft, Cisco, Facebook, Broadcom, MasterCard, Amex, Visa, and Google. These companies don't need a lot of explanation. They're very popular companies, and all of these companies are going to survive this cough situation. Moving on to the ETF section. You can see it's down currently 10.82%, which is pretty on par with the rest of the market. Scrolling down to the holdings, I have VUG, which is the Vanguard Growth Fund, VOO, which is the Vanguard S&P 500, SCHD, which is the Schwab Dividend, and VYM, which is the Vanguard Dividend Funds. So I have a little bit more growth here in the Vanguard Growth Fund, and that's because the rest of this portfolio is pretty focused on dividends. So I wanted to have a little bit more growth here in the Vanguard Growth Fund and the Vanguard S&P 500 Fund. Moving on to consumer. Again, this is a very defensive position. It's outperforming the market currently at 3.8% down. Moving on to the holdings, Costco is the largest holding. Clorox, second largest. Disney is the company that's struggling the most in this section, down 25%. However, I think Disney is going to recover from this in the extended future. And my time horizon for retirement is somewhere around 10 to 20 years from now. And I believe that Disney will be still a very capable company and be worth more in that time frame. I also own Pepsi and Coke. Surprisingly, Coke has gone down quite a bit. Pepsi has gone up, but Coke is still a very good company, and they, of course, are going to survive this situation. I really have no concerns about any of the companies in this situation. I do want to point out that I do own some Amazon stock here. Again, another growth company that does not pay a dividend. All of the other companies here do pay dividends. Moving on to utilities, currently down a little less than 8%. And this is a pretty concentrated section. It only has Southern Company, Domain Energy, Duke Energy Corporation, and NextEra Energy. All of these companies besides NextEra Energy are yielding over 4% right now. So this section definitely yields a lot of dividends. Moving on to industrials, currently down 16.57%. However, again, I have been adding to this position. Moving down to the holdings, the largest holding is 3M, followed by Waste Management. Again, two very good companies, Union Pacific Corporation, Caterpillar. I'm going to skip Fortress right now. We'll come back to them. Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, Tesla, and Boeing. I actually just added this Boeing position. I had exited Boeing as soon as I started hearing troubles, and then I re-added that position very recently, actually. You can tell it's only down a little bit versus if you had owned this stock from the very top. The last two holdings here are Dover Corporation and Global Payments. Global Payments and Tesla are both growth companies since they don't currently pay a dividend. I want to talk a little bit more about FTAI since it is the most unusual one in this holding. So this company focuses on the movement of people and equipment and shipping, as well as moving of energy. You can see here they do aviation leases, they own some railroads, ports, shipping containers, offshore energy, and they also have some energy shipping like vessels and equipment. The current PE ratio is 3, which is extremely low, and they have a dividend yield right now of 16.1%. So if you can lock in this yield and they continue to pay this dividend, that is a great return. Definitely the highest yield in my portfolio right now. And I believe there's a substantial amount of upside to this company. Moving on to finance, currently down 32.9%. This is one of the hardest hit sections in my portfolio. You can see here I still have been adding to it, and despite that adding, it's still down 32% in value. So let's take a look at these holdings. Got JP Morgan, Citibank, Main Street Capital, Bank of America, Affleck, Royal Bank of Canada, T. Rowe Price, TD Bank, Berkshire, and Goldman Sachs. All of these companies really have been struggling. I mean, as the Fed continues to lower rates, it makes it more and more difficult for banks to be profitable. Again, I still view this as a short-term kind of thing. Moving on to Telecom, currently down 20.55%. Moving on to the holdings, very simple, just AT&T and Verizon. I do have a pretty bullish outlook on AT&T right now, and I'm continuing to buy them. I did a full review on AT&T, which I will link in the description. At current prices for AT&T, the yield is 7.35%, which is really amazing if they can continue to pay that. And it also gives me hope that they have potential upside if they can pay down some of their debts. Moving on to real estate, currently down 40.2%. Real estate is currently underperforming the market pretty heavily. There's widespread concern if a lot of these real estate companies are going to have tenants, or are these businesses going to shut down permanently and we will have to wait for new tenants to start new businesses to start receiving rent in these properties. And that's really what I think is holding down the real estate market right now. Taking a look at the holdings here, Realty Income Corp, a Dividend Aristocrat, They're an outstanding company. Again, I've done a review on them. New Residential Investment Group. They do investments with mortgages. Then we have Welltower and Simon Properties. Simon Properties is pretty popular REIT. They are very well financed. They own a lot of malls, and that's why they are down the most here. There's genuine concern whether malls are going to be a thing of the past at some point in the future. However, a lot of the malls that Simon Property owns are very high quality malls, and the products that are sold there, I don't think are going to be able to be sold completely online. And if they can adjust to that market, then I think Simon Property will survive and continue to pay the strong dividend they pay right now. Store Capital, this is another holding of Berkshire Hathaway, another great REIT. And then I have actually decided to add Federal Realty Income Trust. I did a comparison between Realty Income Corp and Federal Realty Investment Trust. Both of these companies I think are undervalued right now, and that's why I've decided to add it to this portfolio. Last and definitely least in my portfolio is energy. You can see it's down 25.6%. This holding altogether is only $50.84. It did get a little bit of money added to it just because it was so far down, but I really have no intention of increasing the size of this position. Moving on to the holdings, it's very straightforward. ExxonMobil, Shell, and Chevron. I really don't believe in a lot of these other oil companies right now, and if you've been paying attention to the news, oil prices have been going down and down. So whether these dividends are safe at this point or the oil industry is just going to continue down, I just don't see a world where that's going to be the case. They will probably continue to pay these dividends consistently for a while, but ultimately the world is just moving away from oil in the long term. So that's it. That's my whole portfolio. We did a quick overview of what the goal for my portfolio is, and then we went sector by sector. Again, I'm going to expand on some of these stocks in the future, but I didn't want this video to be too long. Of course, this is all for entertainment purposes. Consult your financial advisor before making any decisions with your own money and your own portfolio. And with that, let's get to the jelly. Today's jelly is something I thought was pretty cool. I come from a mechanical engineering background, so anything that has to do with gears or motors or anything mechanical like this is pretty interesting to me. So this person did some demonstrations with reduction gears. Here's a little bit of what that looked like. The full video is almost 10 minutes long. He goes on to make a pretty elaborate series of gears that turn very, very slowly. I'll link this video in the description if you want to see the whole video. And with that, thanks for watching. Go ahead and like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and have a great day.